Hi, my name is Nasi Piper, and welcome to Smarter Mobility Africa News. Today we have a gem, should I say, joining us. Her name is Cynthia, and she is the Deputy Director for Transport Policy at the Ministry of Works and Transport in Namibia. Welcome, Cynthia.
Good morning, Anazi. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here with us today. To start things off, Cynthia, I wanted to just talk about your participation at Smarter Mobility Africa this year. Why did you decide Smarter Mobility Africa this year?
Thank you, Anazi, for the question. I believe Africa is really trying to move to sustainable mobility where we are trying to make our transport very smart. And I couldn't be happier to be invited to speak and participate as a panelist at the Smarter Mobility Africa conference. And I'm looking forward to it. We are trying to improve our transport so that it becomes smart. And what better way than to participate in the Smarter Mobility conference this year?
I couldn't agree with you more with regards to that. And what about your presentation? You're giving a presentation around expanding public transport. So, beyond that, without giving too much away, what is the specific call to action that you hope to inspire our audience with after your presentation? What do you want them to get out of it?
Thank you once again, and as with my presentation or my participation, I'm hoping that at the end of the presentation, people will be able to understand, at least from our side in Namibia, what exactly it is that we are trying to implement to be able to catch up with the rest of Africa with regards to sustainable mobility, what policies and what regulations and programs that we are trying to implement in order for us to try and be a smarter transport city or country as Namibia, and how that contributes to the rest of Africa and then to the world. So, with regards to expanding public transportation, we are trying to look at what is it within public transport that we are trying to do as a country to make it smart, but then also to make it sustainable. So, my presentation will be based on that, our contribution as government from a policy perspective, but also how we have worked together with other governments and the private in order to be able to achieve what it is that we are trying to implement. So I'm hoping at the end of the presentation or my participation, people will be able to appreciate what it is that we are doing and how we are contributing to sustainable mobility as a country to Africa.
Wow, that is very, very interesting, and I can't wait until you unravel more at the event. But obviously, having worked so hard on those on that progress and that transition, there's obviously a few stumbling blocks, and I'm sure you experienced some challenges. Can you share like one or two challenges that you have experienced having worked in the ministry?
Oh, yes, we've definitely come across a number of challenges and a number of them. But for time, I'll mention like you've requested just one or two, and one of them is definitely the issue of funding scarcity. We are trying to implement these programs. However, we are finding it a bit difficult to be able to secure the funding that we need in order to be able to fully implement these projects that we are coming up with. I think it's a well-known fact the world over that most of these your smarter initiatives require a lot of funding for development, but more so for maintenance. And so, as a country, we are not different from any other developing or developed country where we are still trying to secure funding to be able to see us through, having to implement and then thereafter maintain most of the projects that we are trying to introduce. Also, I think one of the challenges that we are facing, maybe special challenges, Namibia, is that we do have in some parts of the country a bit of an infrastructure limitation. We all know that with most smarter mobility initiatives, it requires for your infrastructure to be modernized to a certain level. And in most rural areas, you do have roads that are not as modern, and so it becomes a little bit difficult for us to be able to implement some of these initiatives that would make it, that would make our roads a bit more smarter. So I think those are just two of the challenges that I could think of to share, but obviously we have more in the presentation and that we'll be able to unpack at the conference.
Wow. Smart infrastructure. I like that. And that's something that we're also going to be talking and touching on at the event, strategic urban planning, to allow for that mobility to take place naturally. So do you mind sharing with us like some key objectives and maybe goals that the Ministry of Works and Transport in Namibia has for the short term and maybe in the near long term? What are some of your key strategic objectives?
Okay, thank you for asking. With the Ministry of Works and Transport, maybe to start, the bigger picture is that we've just adopted our transport policy in 2018. It's active, we are running it until 2035. With the transport policy, our main vision is that we want to build a more integrated transport system that looks at all the different modes of transport that link up with each other. Because as Namibia, we are trying to build, or we are trying to say we want to attain Namibia being a logistics hub for Southern Africa. So in building that, we see it very important that it's important for us to focus on all the critical modes of transport, which is your rail, your road, maritime, aviation, including logistics. In order for us to be able to achieve this, we have come up with a number of master plans that we're trying to implement. One is the logistics master plan, that we are trying to implement. We also have the master plan, or the city master plan, the sustainable master plan of Windhoek, which is more focused on building a smart city. We do have programs within that where we are trying to have non-motorized transport as a more focused area, where we are trying to build your pedestrians, trying to build roads more for the people, and not more for vehicles like we have been doing in the past. Your cycling lanes, your walking lanes, more importantly. And so we do have a number of programs that we are trying to implement within this term, more short in the short term. But more long term, what we're looking at is what is it that we are trying to do in transport to try and attain now the bigger vision, which is the transport policy. And that is where we are looking at your national roads. We are trying to see at how do we make Namibia a logistics hub for Southern Africa, for example. And one of the plans that we are trying to do is the implementation of accessing, especially your inland borders. So we have entered into a number of agreements with several countries where we are trying to implement what you call a one-stop border post initiative, where we try to say, in order for us to improve your trade flow, or the smooth trade of goods and services, we want to implement a one-stop, where we've moved away from freight transport stopping twice at the borders and having them stop only once. That would obviously reduce the transit times, and it will also improve the processes that are having to be implemented at the borders. And so that reduces time, and hopefully it will also reduce the cost of the products, since they'll be able to be moving from one point to another in a much faster way. So these are just some of the initiatives in transport that we're trying to introduce and implement, to better trade, to improve trade flow, to try and build smarter cities for the people that are within, to try and build bigger, smarter roads for freight transport on the national roads. So those are just some of the projects that, as a ministry and more responsible for infrastructure development. Those are the projects that we're looking to implement, and we are more focused on some on short term and some of them on a longer term basis.
Oh, wow. We've mentioned quite a lot of things there, and I'm sure everyone is going to be like flooding towards you at the event, wanting to find out more details with regards to these plans and objectives for Namibia. So, who's exactly leading the charge, whether it's an organization or individuals? Who's leading the charge with making sure that you guys are meeting these objectives?
Uh, Anazi, with what we're doing, I believe it's not just one organization, it's not a one man's show. We believe in most of the projects that we are working on and how we can successfully implement them, that it's only right that we have a collaborative approach, and that's what we've been doing. We all know government's role. It's mostly infrastructure development. We are there for mostly policy and regulation as well. And but we have in all our projects relied on the private sector as well, you know, for research, for data collection, for giving us information with regards to customer needs. So it's not a one man's show. We've done this, and I think we are able to do it successfully only with a collaborative approach between government as well as the private sector. So that is what we've been doing. We do a lot of stakeholder engagement. We do have a lot of meetings that are organized between private and government sector. We do have a lot of government to government approaches. I've mentioned the different agreements that we've entered into with some of our neighboring countries. So it's a whole lot of both. It's government, it's private, it's even government to government across, you know. So it's everybody that comes on board. Everyone needs to know their role, you know, with government, obviously with some of the projects leading, and having private sector also bring their part.
Well, you touch on a very good, um, you know, collaboration partnership. That is exactly what smart mobility is all about, bringing everyone under the same room to have these types of discussions on our platform. Is there anyone specific that you're eyeing and that you're hoping to meet at Smart Mobility Africa to or collaborate with?
We are really looking forward to meet most of the countries. I know in Africa, without mentioning one particular one, we've read up on a number of success stories with some countries that have advanced with smarter mobility. Would love, as Namibia, we've just entered into the environment of the ride sharing as a part of smarter mobility. We are working on how to regulate these ride sharing initiatives. So we are hoping to meet, you know, some officials or some experts from some countries that have advanced on this platform, and hopefully we can get a bit of information on how this is being done on policy level as well as on regulation, how these are being regulated in different countries that are more advanced than us. So yeah, we are looking forward to meeting such people and perhaps engaging with them and getting a little bit of information on how we can better regulate that part of the subsector in Namibia.
Yeah, and it's quite a big one and quite a new one to the industry. So I know we've just recently regulated it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to work together, collaborate, and support each other, especially when it comes to the trade, like you mentioned earlier. Um, but going back to Smarter Mobility Africa, you know, our overarching theme is embracing the new urban era through smarter mobility. So, what does that theme mean for you?
Uh, it's embracing the new urban era through smart mobility. I think for me, what that means is simply, you know, what is it that we want to do I don't want to say smarter because that's a word that's already there. I believe for me it's simple, it's easier. We shouldn't just look at it's not so much as technology, but it's also processes. What processes are we willing to, overlook in order for us to make, our systems much more faster, much more, service oriented, much more safe for the consumer, for the customer. So I think for me, that is what it means. That is what I'm looking forward to be able to learn. What processes are we looking to overlook? What processes should we actually do away with? What is the technology that we are, the simple technology that we are willing to advance or to implement? Because we know as Africa, we might not have all the necessary your 5Gs or your mostly reliable internet accesses. So we do not want to implement systems that would require so much from us that we are unable to actually maintain such systems. So I'm hoping that we are able to share practical and much simpler ways that we can do things that would still make our transport systems in Africa smarter and still accessible to, especially to the rural areas where we have already said we have very limited modern infrastructure. So, what is it that we are willing to look at to implement to not only impact your people in the cities, but also the people that are in the rural areas? So, for me, I think that is what the theme means. That is what I'm hoping to go and learn from the conference. And those are the collaborations I'm looking forward to go and have and hopefully bring back home for implementation.
Certainly. You've covered quite a lot. I mean, bringing smarter mobility that is obviously more efficient, affordable, and accessible, so that everyone can be part of the transition, not just the 1%. I think, yeah, you've really inspired me. And I could definitely sit here for the whole day, just, peeling the onion and peeling the layers to what needs to be done. But Cynthia, can you just give us one last parting shot to leave the audience with? What should we be looking out for? What should we think about? How would you like to encourage and motivate anyone who's listening?
Thank you so much, Anazi. I think from my side, we are really looking forward to attending the conference. We're looking forward to contribute and learn as well from others. But for those that will be attending, those that have not confirmed yet, kindly do so. I think we are going to have a lot of presentations looking at the overview of the program. I'm certainly looking forward to it. We're looking forward to all of the site visits. There's going to be some exhibitions as well. And so I think it's a good platform for Africa for us to be able to pick up from each other on what is happening. We keep speaking of the One Stop Border initiative where we are trying to connect Africa as a region from the south to the east to the west up to the north. And most of these initiatives are only possible if we're able to come together on one platform and discuss what is happening from all the corners of Africa and try and leverage of each other's resources and knowledge and try and harmonize. We keep speaking of harmonized laws, harmonized processes. That is the only way that we can connect Africa as one. If we have the same laws, for example, or the same regulations in Namibia and in South Africa, it makes it much easier for us to be able to trade with each other, because what is expected in South Africa, the same would be expected when a transporter, for example, crosses over, and the same with other neighboring countries. It makes it very difficult if the expectations are different, because it means you would be punishing one transporter for one item that they may be transgressing in one country, whereas when they cross over into the other country, it might not be a transgression. So we need to be able to harmonize such laws. We need to be able to harmonize processes. We need to be able to speak one language, especially as far as transport is concerned, because that is the enabler of most things. That is the one thing that connects us all. So if we come to this platform really from my side. We're looking forward to it. We are looking forward to the learning processes. We're looking forward to the exhibitions. And yeah, I'd like to just encourage everybody to join, those that have not, and everybody that has. I hope to see you there soon in October.
That's all we have time for today. That was Cynthia, the Deputy Director of Transport Policy from the Ministry of Works and Transport in Namibia. So much insight and so much more to look forward to. Thank you so much for joining us today. But don't forget to follow us on our socials and on our LinkedIn, hashtag SMA Summit, hashtag the New Urban Era, and hashtag SMA for All. We'll see you again next time.